Wilson sent Germany a letter of protest, but he would not be drawn into war. In fact, he was re-elected in 1916 on the slogan, "He kept us out of war." It would have been hard to get into it regardless. While European armies counted their troops by the millions, the U.S. Army had 133,000 men in uniform, the Navy had 67,000, and the Marine Corps had 15,000. Few countries were ever so ill-prepared for conflict. In January 1917 came the intercepted Zimmermann Note, in which Germany asked Mexico to join an alliance against the United States, and Wilson could no longer afford to be neutral. In April, he asked Congress for a declaration of war against Germany. The Army wanted to build up and train a force of at least 500,000 men before sending them to Europe, but the staggering French and British wanted the Americans now. So Wilson ordered a symbolic force, a single Army division of about 20,000 soldiers that would be known as the American Expeditionary Force, AEF, to France. It was under the command of General John Blackjack Pershing, fresh from a fruitless year-long chase of Pancho Villa down in Mexico. Pershing was a bland and colorless commander whose greatest attribute was obstinacy. The Marines had been the first American military unit to fight in both the Philippines and Cuba during the Spanish-American War. They had previously fought in China, Nicaragua, Panama, the Dominican Republic, Mexico, and Haiti, whenever America needed a small amphibious force to send ashore. Coming from ships, the Marines were not considered an army of invasion, merely a seagoing police force to protect American interests. But when the Marines were not needed, there were ongoing efforts to abolish them or to absorb them into the Army. In 1829, 1831, 1834, 1866, 1908, and 1909, the Navy, the Army, and several presidents tried to get rid of the Marines. It seemed that the hardest fighting the Marines ever did was fighting for the privilege of defending their country. Pershing did not like the Marines and was offended by their "first to fight" motto. This thing in Europe, he decided, would be an all-army affair. But if the Marines were not part of the fighting, they almost certainly would be disbanded. The commandant of the Marine Corps went over General Pershing's head to the Secretary of War, who sent 2 Marine regiments to France. They formed the 4th Brigade of Marines, fewer than 8,000 men. Pershing thought the fighting would be over in a short while. He scorned the stasis of trench warfare and believed that Americans would break the war wide open. His soldiers began training with experienced French and British officers, getting ready to go into the line sometime after the first of the year. All the while, the Army scorned the Marines. One general referred to them in official correspondence as adventurers, illiterates, and drunkards. Pershing sent most of the Marines to rear areas, where they built warehouses and barracks, unloaded ships, helped dredge harbors, strung telephone lines, patrolled icy docks, and pulled drunken soldiers from bars. Far from the front, the Marines drilled and practiced their marksmanship. A fundamental tenet of the Marine Corps is that every Marine is a rifleman, and these Marines were only months away from proving that they ranked among the best in the world. Marines were not alone in being prevented from doing their jobs by the stoic and bureaucratic Pershing. His headquarters at Chaumont would not allow American war correspondents near the front, and Pershing ordered that when American forces went into battle, correspondents could not identify by name any of the Army regiments, could not say which state the soldiers were from, and could not distinguish between regular troops and National Guard troops, or between infantry and artillery. They could report only that units or elements of the Army were in combat. Little did he know it, but Pershing had condemned the Army to anonymity. Several stories exist as to how correspondents were able to use the word Marines in their dispatches. The most logical is that correspondents argued that since they could use the word Army, they should be able to write of Marines. Censors agreed, overlooking the fact that there was only one brigade.